Well, this week we're talking about tool and team cohesion. So we work with a lot of entrepreneurs who love shiny new things, who love getting all the apps, all the programs. These days in the working world too, you can find an app to do just about anything. And you might end up having 5 apps that are doing the same thing, or that can do 5 different things, and then they're just crossing over. So if you're like Daryl, who's not on our call today, and you were excited about every brand new thing we talked about, and you're like, I want it all, I'm going to get it, I'm going to buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it. Then you have 20 different apps you're paying for. Then this discussion is for you, Daryl. This is why I warn you, don't buy all the new shiny things, because at some point it's going to come to a time where you're like, okay, what are we actually using? What's my team using? What are the tools for the team? What are the tools for our workflows, for integrations? How are we going to get that all to be cohesive?
Makes me so happy that I've poisoned Taryn Turner. Taryn Turner's like the best of all of us combined, you know what I'm saying? And so like that I've poisoned Taryn with my trash talk on Daryl makes me so happy. It's so good.
Well, I don't want to trash talk Daryl, but he isn't here today. So
yet.
Kimberly, like that I poisoned Kimberly too, like just the sweetest Southern Belle that I've brought her into my trash talk on Daryl makes me so collectively happy.
You don't get credit for that.
Oh, dang it. Your papa does. I love it.
So you find yourself in a position where you've got all these apps. First place you might find yourself starting is with finance reports. So you're looking at those and you're like, what are we paying for? We had all these different apps. So we've come alongside people in exactly that scenario. They don't know what they're paying for and why. They've had people come and go. They've got apps purchased under different users. They're not under main accounts. So usually what they do is they just start running credit card reports. They start looking at what they're actually paying for, and they start realizing, okay, we've got multiple people signed up with the same app, or we've got multiple apps we're no longer using. So that is a good starting point, is what are you actually paying for? And that's going to show you what apps you're using, or at least paying for, and you should be paring down from. So from there, it's just a good way of getting a list of apps, and then you can take those apps to your team. If you're not even sure what they're for, some of the charges can be obscure in what they're calling what you're paying for. Maybe it's under their parent company name, but you're paying for something that's called something completely different.
Right.
Takes a bit of research. But yeah, once you do get a good list going, you can just send that to the team. You're like, all right, if anybody's responsible for this, put your name by it. Some of these here, once you get names by them, then you realize, okay, these are duplicates. What do we want to use as a company? We see form builders in a lot of them. There's so many different form builder apps out there.
Yep.
Google Forms being a great free tool, but it looks not so great. So it's not always the ideal solution. Wufoo is pretty awesome at looking better, being able to embed it places. And then of course there's Typeform. We've talked about all these different apps, but that's one example you see a lot, is people just purchasing different form apps. Aaron, anything you want to add to the list now that we've got it compiled?
No, I mean, obviously communication apps is another big one, right? Like we talked about that a little bit last week. Savannah did a great job on talking about how we're communicating as a team, but a lot of times, like the next new thing sounds so sexy, right? Like whoever, like you know all the ills of the thing that you're in the middle of, right? Which is what makes a visionary prone to buy the next thing. They're like, oh, I hate the way Slack feels. I'm just so encumbered by it. But a lot of times it's not Slack's pain point, it's the way Slack's being used, you know, but they mistake it for the tool. And then they see this new bright, shiny object. They're like, oh, that looks so much better, but we don't know the ills of that one yet, right? But a lot of times visionaries can make a wholesale change without thinking through downstream pain point. And so I just think that's how you start adding things on, or then they start operating in a silo and then they're the only one using this. And then they start bringing in onesie twosies into this. And then pretty soon you're like hamstrung between a bunch of different styles of communication. And then it's like, holy, what just happened? So I think that can happen. Yeah. I think project management too is another tool. That's a good one, Kimberly, of like, which tools are we using for project management? Like which tools are we using for CRMs? That's another big contender where it's like, yeah, but doesn't that tool do pretty much what this tool does? And we're now hamstrung between 2 different platforms. So, yep.
Yeah, Aaron gave me a pretty nice backhanded compliment the other day about something I'm good at.
I
So
only give front-handed compliments, not backhanded ones. Okay, what is it?
so yeah, that they come up with this bright, shiny new tool, app, whatever, and you really got to ask the question, why do we need that? Yeah, it's fun, it's shiny. What's it serving? Does something we already own take care of that purpose? Is it just a shinier version of something we own? And if so, how can we utilize what we already own to accomplish those tasks?
There
And
was no backhandedness, no backhandery in that one at all. I want to say, like, I'll go on record saying right now in front of this whole group, because it's huge amounts of people here that are listening to me. Taryn Turner does great at pumping the brakes. Like, I think that I can be a facilitator, right? So that visionary talks about vision. I want to see his vision enacted. So my brain starts going down the road of, oh, that's what you want. Okay, so how can we build that out? And Taryn's great at saying, yeah, but why? Like, why are we doing that? What's the purpose of that? Like, what are you trying to get to? And can we get there faster if we just use efficiencies we already have in place rather than going and building this brand new thing? So Taryn, that was not meant to be backhanded, only front-handed. I like you a lot.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you did say though, if people don't know me, it can come off as a
That's true. That is true, because, and I would say this, I was talking to a CFO yesterday at a new client acquisition that we're in the middle of. And like, I really like this guy because his brain is so logical, and it can feel like dad says no, right? Like that whole vibe of like, yeah, but dad says no. You know what I mean? Where it's like the heavy of, but it's not for the sake of saying no. It's actually, you're providing the best amount of help, and it's just pump the brakes. So I feel like you never come off super like dogmatic, but I do think if somebody doesn't know Taryn, it can be like, man, did you just tell me no? Aren't I the boss? And it's like, you are, but is that really what you want? So I think you do a great job of balancing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So just ask yourself those key questions. It's what do we already have that's serving this? What are the essential functions of this that we don't have? And then you can actually, have your pros and cons list of, okay, let's move forward with this new app. Or maybe you end up doing it and sacrificing some other apps you no longer need. If you're switching your courses to a new platform, then don't just have 5 different platforms with all your courses, migrate them out just to one new platform, so that your customers aren't confused, you aren't confused, your team's not confused, even though it might just be a nice brand new membership course platform. So that's tools. A lot of times too, you find apps that are paid by user. So the different users that can log in tends to be a problem. An app might say it's $30 a month, but before you know it, you have 10 users in there and you're actually paying $300 a month.
That's right.
And you're like, holy hell, what did I sign us up for? I thought we were paying $30 a month.
Yes.
And some of the apps are getting better at paring down how many users can be logged in at the same time. So you can't even share user access with others. They will kick people out. Not all the apps, fortunately, but some of them are buttoning down in that scenario. So you do actually end up having to pay per user. So yeah, look at the ones that are being paid per user. So right now, we're really talking about just trimming things down, so that work isn't messy for your team. Things aren't messy. People aren't saying, okay, but do I go here to look for this? Where is that agreement? Is it in PandaDoc? Is it in DocuSign?
Yeah.
Where is that customer's order? Is it in this CRM or in that CRM? So you really want to just be careful there with the shiny new objects.
I think something that you and Savannah are both really good at doing is architecture. Like, let's think about, like, what's the architecture behind it, and then how do we plug in the different platforms based upon the architecture that we started with? Instead of, sometimes you can get the cart in front of the horse, where it's like we start building out all these platforms and then you've created all this intricacy, instead of saying, but wait, like, what are we trying to accomplish and what's the architecture behind it? And then let's plug in the right tools in the right spot. I think you guys both do that really well. And I think that kind of slows the roll a little bit sometimes on how many integrations do we need, and what is supposed to, like you were saying, Taryn, who is collecting the sale, and then especially where we can see some complication is like affiliates. Like, how are your affiliates being managed? And do you have separate platforms? Like, I think that it can quickly become complex if you don't architecture it out. And I do think that I went live this morning and talked about it a little bit, trying to promote the show. And that is just asking yourself, yeah, but why? Like, what is the architecture behind it? Why are we doing what we're doing? Because sometimes we can be running so hard and firefighting so deep. We're so deep in the fire or so thick in the woods, we're no longer seeing the forest for the trees. Look at that, Savannah. Bumper sticker sayings. Yes, why informs the what and the how. Good one, girl.
I seriously need to make like a line of stickers of all the things that go through my head. Like everything goes into a slogan.
I love it. Yes,
We can help you launch that, Savannah.
Yeah, know a guy.
What was I gonna say? Oh, yeah. And then when you're asking why, it's, who are you serving with this? Is this an app for your customers? If so, think of your customer perspective. If it's for your team, is this an app just serving your internal processes? Okay, then which part of your team is it serving? Let's get their feedback. Is this actually useful for them? We might be thinking of it in one way, and the customer support team is saying that looks fine to you, but that's not serving us at all, even though it may be for us. So get input from the team on who this app is actually serving. And if it's customers, you can even get input from customers. A lot of people do feedback surveys for customers, net promoter scores from customers. So yeah, just once you have the why, then the who, and then the what, and then you should be golden there. So that's probably it with tools. Do you think I covered tools pretty well?
Yeah, I think, Kimberly, I think you could probably have some good things to share on this. You guys have, I think Stephen is such a brilliant dude, but he also is an early adopter of new tech, and maybe just some wisdom that you've gleaned or things you'd like to share. I think that you've always got some good content on this kind of stuff.
Sure. Like one of the biggest things, like our team culture is really strong, and we do fight fires, and we do like some of the things we're not supposed to, and then we go back and try to fix it. But we work really well together, and we love working together. So all that stuff's just kind of like in a day's work, but we are striving to get more efficient and streamline the stuff, and it's going to be great. But one thing that I did want to touch on that it kind of like trips things up a little bit is third-party vendors. So when you have applications for this thing or that thing, and then you're bringing in third-party vendors here and third-party vendors there, and like it's like, okay, here's how we do all this, right? Like here's our Slack etiquette, here's this and all that, the welcome kit, and they're like, okay, cool, we got it. And then you go off and like do this whole other thing with your team, and you're like, okay, cool, team's got it, we're moving forward. And then like third-party people are still like doing the same old thing, and then you have kind of like this disconnect. So bringing in new stuff, consolidating things, either way, it's really important to make sure that your third-party teams are on board, and to be really methodical about, like Aaron, you said, slow to hire, quick to fire, or something like that.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Same concept with applications. Like ask the questions, do your due diligence. Why do I need that? Do I not already have something else? How can we use what we have? Like, what am I already paying for? Because you may have the budget to do it over here and stuff that you're not even using. And then after all of that, then you can adopt some new software. And that gives you some time to kind of figure out like, do I even freaking need this? Like, this is a lot of work. Like, can we just keep with what we have? And that really helps kind of like buff out some of the shine on the new things. Is like, oh wait, here's my process for introducing new stuff. I gotta like find out all this. I gotta like do the team stuff. I gotta do the third-party vendor stuff. Like, you know what? Never mind. It's cool, And so I think just having a process in place, just like you are very methodical about hiring people, think of that the same way when it comes to your apps. And that will help reduce the amount of whiplash.
I think too, like insisting as vendors come in that they work with what you've got, at least at the beginning. I mean, because a lot of times, I know for us, we consult with a lot of clients. We were just on a call yesterday, Taryn and I, with somebody that has a data project for us that wants to build a dashboard, and they've got some good things in play. And their question for us was, well, maybe you might think that we need to switch it all up. And this is what I love about Taryn is, he was like, no, it looks like you've got something good in place. Maybe we can just jump in there and refine what you've got. Let's look at the data you're collecting. Let's look at how you're collecting it. Let's make sure that it's pure as it's coming in. And then let's use tools you already have on the playing field, because there's nothing suckier than having a vendor come in and tell you, oh, everything that you're doing, that's cool, but we're going to actually create in our own environment because that's what we're comfortable with. But it's like, no, they're your vendor. You're paying them. So make them use your stuff and let them work out the pain points. Don't let them create a bunch of pain points for you. And where I've noticed this is particularly notorious for marketing and sales. because usually they have vehicles they like using. But the question is, yeah, that's cool that it works well for you. But if you're going to kick up a bunch of pain for our customer experience department or our fulfillment teams or how we're managing our communities on the backside, like it's not worth the pain, So come and look at our field and see what we're playing with and how you can adapt to our tools, because in the end, you work for us. Like you're a consultant to us. And then obviously being humble enough to realize that maybe you do need to switch, and not being closed off to that, but at least asking the whys before you start working out the house. Because I think that, it saves you a lot of pain downstream, and you got to think about it holistically. We're thinking about customer journey. We're talking about, like Taryn's topic today is tech, and like we're talking about tech tools, and a lot of it's internal side of things, but your internal is for the sake of serving your external, so it's like, be thinking about what's going to be the best customer journey for whatever tools that I'm adapting, because in the end, they're the ones that pay everybody's salaries, right? They're the ones that pay for all these tools for us in the end. So how can we make their customer journey the best? Which I think is where you're going with that, Taryn.
Yeah, and it's definitely not a shame issue. It's, these companies, they get created out of a hurricane of success. So they're just grabbing onto things as it's flying by, just trying to hold everything together. So it's definitely not, unheard of. It's more of just how the success comes, is just trying to grab onto things and stay afloat. And you don't have the foresight of where your company's going to go yet. So it's more, as you reach this point, now let's talk about the cohesion of the tools and the apps, and let's start building our work culture now that we've got the proven process of success for our business that we didn't have when we started, and we just had to do what we could. So that brings us in here to team cohesion. That's what we're going to talk about next. And within team cohesion, we've spoken about the gap analyzer app, the org chart, the key duties. So finding the roles that your people are doing. Now, how do we make that more cohesive? What about ending up with people who are doing the same thing? And you find out, okay, these people are actually doing the same job. We need to, for simplicity's sake, so that it gets done the same way every time, we need to assign just one person to doing this job. Why is it split between them? Unless it's a big job that has to be split up. You might need multiple support agents, but you might only need one person creating funnel pages or creating order forms. That might not need to be split up between 5 different people, whoever's available. So we are going to take a quick little tour here. Aaron loves field trips. You go on the Magic School Bus.
Taryn takes the best field trips too. Like of all the field trips, Taryn takes all the best ones.
I love the Magic School Bus too. Miss Frizzle. Savannah, yes, you look like you're about to speak.
It's not anything important. Just Travis regularly makes fun of me, and that was what he said I dress up like. He was like, "What's that teacher's name on the Magic School Bus?" And I was like, "Miss Frizzle." He's like, "Yes, you dress like Miss Frizzle." I'm like, "I will take that as a compliment, good sir. Thank you very much."
She got style, Miss Frizzle.
Yeah. All right, we got to get Travis back for you. We got to find out who he dresses like. A soda distributor.
Mr. Bean. He dressed like Mr. Bean.
Colin Basic.
Mr. Bean's got style too.
Yes, he does. He has Mr. Bean style.
Perfect. So you might be, we're looking at this in the situation of you've got roles you're trying to migrate out to other people. You're working on your team cohesion. Maybe you found the right people that are not in the right seats though. And you're looking at just moving some roles over. So the first thing we do, and you can even pull this if you've done the Gap Analyzer app from your Gap app results, and from those results, pull out the things you want to start migrating. So we'd have everybody on the team fill out their roles. What are they doing? And like I said, if you've done the Gap app, this information is already there for you. So you're just looking at it in a different viewpoint. Looking at the frequency, you're looking at the notes, anything you want to add to it. So we're taking a look at the roles we want to migrate over. We did this one as Aaron and I were heavy in the finance role for AYR, as we helped them build out their finance department, and they got a director of finance, and then they had some more finance support specialists coming under him. And now they have a pretty nice team of 4. So then you're looking at, okay, what are the ones we're migrating to? You know, who owned it, who's it going to, or who still owns it. So this is just a good way of making sure the duties are being accounted for and tracked, and easy to switch. So they can come in here and be like, okay, Taryn's still reviewing contracts for speaking events. That's something that's clearly still on Taryn's plate. Let's go ahead and start assigning this to somebody else. Taryn's gonna train them on the process, and now this person is the new owner of this task. Anything else you want to speak to on this one, Aaron?
Will you zoom out, because I think it's really good. So we created this for the sake of like, so they can see like right there. Yeah, good. So essentially this is, just as the title says, it's the migration of roles. And so it started in 2018 where I was director of finance for Advance Your Reach. And I was doing a lot of the things. Taryn was supporting me in a lot of the things. But as we bring in this new position, Collab's role is always, we'll hold a spot, but then we'll exit. But then how does exiting work, right? How do you hand those things off? And the way that works is on that roles sheet, you know, you take an inventory of everything that everybody's doing. So on the first tab, T, will you just look at that one real quick for me, and then we'll come back to this one. The first one is like, everybody's just drop on the sheet everything that you do when it comes to finance, Aaron, everything that Taryn does, and then as you go in there and you evaluate those things, then you can take all those things, cut and paste them into the next tab, which is that migrations. And then that's where this is the starting point. But as you notice, like the green for my name gets smaller and smaller as you go right on this document. And that's how it should be, right? Like until eventually Aaron's wholly phased out. Aaron's no longer director of finance because Josh is holding that role. And then Taryn too, this is a lot of times we'll do these for Taryn with tech, is like Taryn ends up holding like a fractional CIO, like chief information officer. Like he's the one that's doing all of the tech at some level when we start with some of these companies. But then we don't want Taryn to own that for too long. Like Taryn's not looking for a full-time job. Taryn's holding a space, you know? So as we hire people in, how can we migrate Taryn out of his roles? And it should just look like that, where the Taryn's color is going to get smaller and smaller the further you go right, because we're migrating out of Taryn into somebody else. But you can do this on internal team too, where, you know, as you go through your gap analyzer, then your delegate and elevate, and then you create your job description. And then you realize, well, Shelly over here has been carrying way too many duties for way too long because she's grandfathered into things that she's just like become a catch-all. So let's have Shelly document everything that she's doing. Oh, we just did that with Gap Analyzer. Oh, we've just identified where Shelly's brilliance is. Great, we've made her a job description, and now there's all this extras. Drop that on an inventory sheet like this and migrate Shelly out of those roles, because this is also a great way to come up with your SOPs and the Loom tutorials that you're going to walk people through. Is you've just taken inventory. Shelly's trying to get that off her plate. The easiest way to delegate and elevate is SOP out your stuff so that you can then hand that off. And then Shelly just becomes a quality controller, you know, where, you know, I know I just came off a call, and Taryn, I'm going to talk to you about it later today, but like a lot of times for live events, we do a lot of roles for clients, but like at some point Taryn's brilliance has been exhausted. Like he's not going to come up with anything new in this role. So that's the perfect time for Taryn to hand off some of that. So we do a lot of like sales collection at the end of an event, where we're going to hand off to the sales team exactly who gets what lists and how they follow up. And on the call this morning with Pedro Adeo's team, the conversation was, hey, let's have Taryn create some tutorials, some SOPs around what he does, because that's pretty end over end. He's not like reinventing the wheel every time he does this. So let's have him create some SOPs and some tutorials so that we can hand it off to internal team for Pedro Adeo. And then Taryn just becomes quality control. Then internal team runs all the things that Taryn's given him the directive on, and then runs it by Taryn and say, does that look right? So that's the migration, so you don't drop the ball, right? And sometimes the danger of something like this with migration is you don't want to leave gaps. You don't want to leave holes. So the best way to do that is line out your duties, identify what you want to migrate out of, create your SOPs around those, hand them off to somebody. You can see, I think on the roles sheet, Taryn, did we have a spot where it's hand off to who? No, I think that's actually on the template. So on the template that we've created, we've actually evolved it since 2018, where it's who are we going to hand it off to? And I think that's a good thing too, right? Who on the playing field is this going to be migrated to? And I think that that's when, right there, suggest a replacement. Like, who are you going to hand it to? And then as you hand it off to that person, you still are the guy that's QCing it, or you still are the gal that's quality controlling it. But essentially it's the fulfillment of delegate and elevate. We've identified we're going to delegate these things down. How are we going to delegate these things down? SOP it out and become quality control until they're on it. And then you're just like, see ya. You can be the resident expert they come back to, but that's how you create bandwidth for yourself. So I know I just went into a bunch of different things in Canvas across a bunch of our tools, but essentially that's what this was created for, so that you don't have things fall through the cracks.
Yeah, I love it. Love it, Aaron. And yeah, just it's all your tools working together too. You did the Gap app, you've got your job descriptions, you even have a delegate and elevate. You can pull this data from all of those. What are the things you do want to delegate from that delegate and elevate results? So it's a great way to list it here, a great way to start the SOP process. It's a nice big holistic viewpoint of everything working together for team cohesion, making sure the right people are doing the right things, right butts in the right seats. Right, Aaron is switching, yep. And Kimberly asked a great question. She's always looking for shiny new tools. Is this template a shiny new tool for us this week? We'll see, Kimberly. A little bit of a
whatever Kimberly wants, she gets.
I think that's fair. She's the Aaron, you gotta mute your phone. It's coming through weird. Oh, there we go. You're done. Yeah, Kimberly's our ops experts all-star. So great suggestion, Kimberly. Go ahead and add that here as a tool note.
You can put that on Ben's to-do list.
Will be, don't worry.
Anything that we can give Ben is the best.
Ben loves it. Great. So I think a lot of times you find out with doing this exercise too is you end up crossing out things that you don't have to do anymore. Payroll biweekly reminders, that was something we automated, so nobody's in charge of it. So you do end up with things you're like, okay, why is somebody even doing this? What can we utilize that we already have that can take this place? So that's also a fun feature of that tool too. Yeah, anything on your end, Savannah, on the migration of roles? I know you've done a few of us with us too. She says no. I think that means no. Cool. Well, yeah, that's a quick.
So probably just, I would say T2, talking about communication plan. Like as far as like we've inventoried here and we've shown people the duties and we've shown them how we're going to hand them off. But then Savannah just did a great job. She handed off some of her tech duties and some of her customer experience duties to internal team and Pedro Adeo's side. And I felt like she did a really good job at just a communication plan of this is how the migration is going to work. And this is the passwords that need to be shared. And this is, like telling the admin, like this is how it's going to go, so that there's a good roadmap, right? Because we've created this document to show what's going to be happening, but sometimes it's the how of and how long you're going to continue holding roles and just giving people an expectation. Savannah did a great job just around communicating that to who she answers to in the customer experience department and who she's handing it down to, so that there's just really good on-ramp, off-ramp for somebody to come on, taking on the duties, and then Savannah to be exiting the duties.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, and so you always want to include what do they need access to. I mean, that's always a good one to include. People forget, okay, they do need this, but then they also need access. What kind of user access do they need? Do we need to share passwords with them? So what are the tools for success for them to get that accomplished as well? Yeah, Savannah did do a good one. I did not see it, did not see that email, but apparently there was mad props for Savannah from that. Yeah, I don't think I got that email.
It also helps even as you're like working on the process of like deciding who you're giving it to, like just lining out what you need to give access to for your role. Like it kind of helps you, it helps you think through the process a little bit better, and then maybe who's best suited for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, what are the communication lines that are expected from the migration? Do you have project management tools? I love creating recurring tasks for people or tasks in general. I shared with our team on this last week, but we don't want to use our brains for mundane thoughts like trying to remember tasks we have to do each week. So utilize your PM tools to automate that, to make sure you've got the list there, you've got the SOP, you've got the access, you've got to assign to the correct person. And now every week they get the reminder, or every month if it's monthly, because you don't want that to fall on you. You don't want to forget something just because you didn't have a silly reminder in place. And I love the reminders. I don't want to waste my brain space trying to remember what I need to do. I want to use my brain space to solve the problems and to think about the issues. So it's a good segue into the SOPs, the project management tools, the processes, and everything. So it's a great place to be in your business when you reach this point. You're like, okay, let's start getting everything organized. I know, Kimberly, that's probably right where you jumped into Rainmakers, isn't it? This is what they brought you in with. You saw the hurricane, and now you're picking up the pieces and getting the cohesion. Is that about when you started?
They call me Katrina. No. Yeah, it was, I just took a team lead role, and it was like a new like team thing we were going to do. And it was like, okay, cool. This is fun. And I was like, holy smokes. So then it was a matter of like, okay, how can I be efficient in my role? And then once I got that figured out and got bored, I was like, what about this over here? So I kind of like started tinkering in the background. And then it was like, hey, would y'all like to use this? And I was like, oh yeah. So that was kind of the migration for us. And it's been really fun. And I don't get bored anymore.
Nice. Yeah.
Do you think too, Kimberly, I know you and I were talking yesterday on our call about like sometimes there's some vetting that needs to go on behind the scenes before you roll it out to team? Because I know you were showing me other platforms that you guys had looked at before you decided on Monday.com, where you had started creating in kind of a sandbox environment of this was going to be a good tool, but it just didn't end up working out. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that I learned from a senior project manager who is awesome is you don't build based on what works best for you. You build on what works best for your team. So like, I think Asana's cool. Like I would go Asana all day long, but CEO hates it. So CEO Visionary hates Asana. We don't use Asana because we need him in it. So a little bit, at least in the beginning. And so figuring out like, okay, I can manage with whatever because I'm a tech nerd and I love project management tools. So it's all kind of the same to me. Just different flavors of ice cream, right? I love ice cream. So just figuring out kind of like what's going to serve my team best and what like long-term too, because just like we're slow to hire, we have those qualifiers and stuff, like you're expecting that team member will be with you for some time, right? That's why you're going through the whole process. Same thing with your apps and your like, whatever you're going to use for project management or whatever tools, like you're not bringing that stuff on with the thought of like, okay, well, if it doesn't work, we'll just chunk it next week after you've like done all the work to onboard everybody and learn the thing. So just as much as we would go through that process of like really vetting people coming into the company, I feel like even more so the apps and softwares, because maybe this isn't the case all over the place. It's definitely not Taryn Turner's case, but sometimes like, people come and go, like your turnover can be a lot, especially early on. But these systems and project management tools and apps that you're using, like it's a lot harder to turn that over for everybody. It's not like you can just train a replacement and it's, ready to go next week. So I think, and that was something for us, like we kind of had some conversations about like, okay, our key players, what's going to work best for them? How are they going to be able to train their team to do this thing? Because we don't want to live there. We don't want to build something that only works for us and then our team never uses it. So that was a big deal for us. That's why we went with Monday.com. And another thing too is with Monday.com, we had a third-party vendor we were working with who is super awesome. His name is Paul Ace. We love him. And he was using that with his team. So we had a connection already of someone who is using this well in the ways that we wanted to use it. So that kind of helped us lean more towards that too. It's like, all right, we've got a ton of support. We don't have to just rely on Monday.com, support a ticket. Can y'all help us? And maybe we hear a response. Like we literally have somebody we can Slack and be like, dude, what do y'all do when you need OOO calendar, And so that was really helpful for us making that decision too. Savannah said good resources for training are a huge factor in picking new software, like for real, saves you a ton of time and frustration. And then, another thing is like when you have, I feel like there needs to be a hub, like a company hub. And for us, it's monday.com. That's where all our tasks are done, all our toolboxes live. And toolboxes, I say that all the time. I didn't coin the phrase, but that's what I use. Like everything and every person in the company, if they're trained from the beginning to SOP their stuff out, then you have this collection. And we have like some lower tier team members who are assigned to like scrub the toolboxes monthly and make sure everything is up to date and relevant. And so that makes it so easy when we're going to like hand stuff off to another person, or heaven forbid, we have to move into a new software app. We have everything we need that's already there. We just have to comb through it. And it's not like we have to spend a week trying to, pick the splinters out.